Should we get started? Yep. Looks like the sound is on. Well, hi everybody. I'm Cedric Brun. I'm very happy to be here today. It's been a long story with Eclipse, and I'm the CEO of Obeo, and we've been building stuff in Eclipse in the last 15, 16, 17 years now, and I'm very happy to be with Sébastien here.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm Sébastien Gérard from CA. I'm very happy also to be there and tell you about that story of a new partnership in the context of the model-based system engineering technology.
That's right.
So the increasing complexity of systems trace the human cognitive facility. Helping engineers stay on top of this complexity requires new methods and practices for system engineering, raising new challenge with regard to develop. About sovereignty and security, as for example, is one very big challenge now we have to face. User experience, as for example, onboarding of people, new usage scenarios that are expected to happen, collaboration at scale. Several organizations are involved in new software development, new business model, like, for example, if you consider eco-conception or circularity. Digital thread is one very important focus for company, also related to collaboration at scale. So we need tool interoperability, we need to support agile engineering. Of course, we have this augmented engineering facility, that is the introduction of AI technology in the software engineering landscape, like chatbot, Gen AI, large language model, and so on. And finally, new facility to edit knowledge are required, like introduction of multimodality of UI, usage of metaverse for collaboration or virtual reality.
So those are some of the challenges, and so where are we exactly to speak here, right?
Yes, exactly. So in that context, both our I would say not company, because CA is not a company, but organization decided to work together in order to improve the situation. So Serialist, in that context, in the context of model-based system engineering, is involved in two aspects. First, we are very involved in standardization activities. So mainly at the OMG, which is Object Management Group, which provide open specification in that field. And we have been very involved, as for example, in UML and SysML, and today in the new version of SysML, which is called SysML v2, but I will come back later on that point. On the other side, we are also involved in the Eclipse Foundation, part of the board of directors, supporting project and be involved in projects like Papyrus for now a long time. And this is complementary to the activity at the OMG. At the OMG, we make specification, and at Eclipse, we implement the specification.
Concerning Obeo, we are a French company of 60 people. We also now have a presence in Vancouver, now in Tokyo, and we're expanding internationally. But we are mostly known here in Eclipse as having built so many and participated in so many projects like Eclipse Sirius or EMF Compare or the Capella, Eclipse Capella project. Just as a matter of illustration, it's about 1,500 days of effort of open source just for last year. And it's pretty much this level of effort every year, which for, well, we are quite small actually, is quite significant. And some of the projects, like the Eclipse Sirius project, has been widely adopted. You can go on the Sirius gallery and see that there is like 60 examples, public examples of tooling on various domains based on Eclipse Sirius. And so both the CEA and Obeo are quite involved into many modeling technologies, but mostly in different areas, mostly on the standard and OMG before with the CEA, and mostly on with the other part of the technologies before for Obeo, and we decided to join forces.
Exactly. To illustrate this, I would say, initial collaboration, we have to, I can stress on 4 initial steps. The both first steps, which was a work on Sirius Web and a work on porting Papyrus onto of Sirius Desktop, was initiated concurrently, I would say, in parallel, without any consultation together. So on his side, Obeo decided to implement a version of Sirius in order to enable Sirius on the web. On our side, at the CA side, we have some issue with some technology which was deprecated on the Eclipse side, as mainly it was GMF tooling, and we have to make a decision to migrate to another technology. We make some analysis of the technologies that was available for us, technically, but also in terms of the strategy, and we find that Sirius Desktop was a good solution for us, so we decided to port Papyrus onto this technology. And at that time, we have already in mind that we should also migrate to web technology. But for us, it was too big challenge to go from existing Papyrus implementation toward web. So we decided to make that migration in 2 steps. First, onto Sirius Desktop technology, and then to benefit on the work done by Obeo on Sirius Web, to have, after that, the migration to web technology. So this is the third activity, which starts after the one on Obeo and Sirius Web, and the one for us on migrating to Sirius Desktop. And a fourth point was to work on SysML v2, because in the meantime, also, this new version of SysML was raised by the OMG and become an open specification. And so it was also a new opportunity to merge our force and to work together. So, oh, sorry. Just here, I won't detail the work on Papyrus on top of Sirius Desktop, but you have a talk done by Vincent, I guess, on Thursday about that topic, so you will have all the detail on that action. Now we focus on the web technology and SysML v2. So for the work on the web, what is the status? So we have a first milestone. So we have implemented 100% of the meta model and basic editing facility. We support import and export. And we have the initial version of the editors for composite, package, class, and state machines. We are working today on the concept of profile application to support also that profile concept inside the web version of Papyrus. We improve the edition of the properties and the UI and the user experience, and layout.
And I think we're going to be able to move to the demo. I'm going to show you a bit of the Papyrus Web editors. Let's start, and let's figure out how to click. Okay, so as we mentioned, it's the first milestone, but there's lots of work in progress, so it's currently under active development. So there are some of the things here I'm going to show you that are not going to be into the final version. So let's start. First, this is how you welcome into the Papyrus Web editors, and you can see you can create a new project. We have several templates to get started. For instance, we can pick the Java project. Here, you're in a class diagram. You get pretty much what you would expect from a modeling tool. The project explorer on the left, and when you click on some elements, then you can see the properties on the right. On the left, if you have a very good site, you can see that all the meta model elements and all the model elements are exactly the same as those which are within Eclipse UML project and within the Eclipse desktop version. So let's create a class, another class, and then a data type. And for instance, you see here that the palette, you have lots of icons with no way to distinguish the icon. These are the kind of things which are not going to be there in the final version, because we are going to show the actual icon of the element. Creating a property, and then on the right, you can set all the features coming from the UML2 meta model. As an illustration, also, the documentation of each feature is retrieved and displayed into the property views and the forms. And we are going to just set the type with the data type we just created. And that's it for a very basic tour of the class diagram. Well, I mean, most of you most likely already know UML, and you get basically what you would expect. Here, it's based on Sirius Web, and on Sirius, the styles, the graphical styles are going to change based on the model value. And for instance, when we create an association, if we change the aggregation into composite, then you can see the notation reflecting this change. So this was the class diagram. Let's have a quick tour on some other diagram. Is that really? Oh, it's the same video. Yeah. Sorry. Here I did build a slightly bigger model for travel agencies information system, and just so that you can see some of the diagram that you would get, and this is the current status of the GitLab repository in Eclipse. So for instance, and you can see that you have attributes. As it's based on Sirius Web, some of the features are coming for free, like you can browse and click and see all the related elements within the model so that you can, well, navigate into the model. This is the composite structure diagram, where you can create, well, classes as components and the interfaces and so on, and the package diagram. Now let's just create a state machine diagram, here again to illustrate. And we'll start by creating a new object directly within the tree editor. You can see that in UML2, there are so many things you can create into so many other things. And we are creating the state machine element, and then we can create the state machine diagram. Let's resize that, and we are going to create an entry point to the state machine. And we are creating a region. And from this region, well, we can create either choices, transitions, and all the elements you would expect into a state machine diagram. And obviously, then you can link those and create transition. So that's pretty basic at that time, but that's a strong base, and we intend to make sure that the user experience gets better and better with each iteration. Sirius Web iterates once every 8 weeks, so the rhythm of new features coming in and leverage within Papyrus is pretty intense. So what are the underlying technology? So a few things I'd like to stress is that first, Sirius Web is based on Spring Boot and React and GraphQL, which are two technologies which are, well, pretty, well, industry standards, I would say. So it's pretty easy to leverage those technologies and all the components. And at the same time, when you come from the Eclipse world and you go into the Spring, it's still Java backend, and you can still reuse some of the Eclipse technologies. So it's pretty efficient, and there's a huge ecosystem of widgets. On top of that is built Sirius Web, which is a modular platform which defines components which can have a backend and a front end, and which you can integrate into a single app. And in this case, for instance, Papyrus Web editors. It's reusing the Eclipse MDT UML implementation directly in Java on the backend. And as we started to migrate or to adapt Sirius within Papyrus, and we created a component which is reused among the two flavors of Papyrus, the web one and the desktop one. And that component is called UML services, and it's shared between the desktop and the web editors. In that way, we assure that the behavior of the desktop version and the web version is consistent. At last but not least, Sirius Web is using a view model, which is a model itself, which describes all the tooling. So all your diagram editor, all the forms editors, everything is described as a model, and so that you can define tables and so on. And adapting Papyrus web editors or any Sirius-based modeler means changing this view model. Yeah. Just to illustrate that Eclipse UML is used as is, you have the Papyrus desktop version on the left and the Papyrus web editors on the right with use case diagrams. It's the same implementation. So we have the same meta-model implementation, the same model manipulation API you have on Eclipse. You can have it on the server side. You can create, read, update, delete elements, and obviously the XML serialization is going to be as compatible as the Eclipse desktop one. Just to have a look, you can see that you can work with the UML elements with the Java API pretty easily. So this is quite an enabler for new innovation. As Jonas said during the keynote, there's lots of things which can be done now. First, because it's reducing barrier. It's as simple as going to an URL, and you can start using the tool. It's very easy to adapt. It's very easy to deploy and to deploy on any kind of cloud. Sorry. It's model agnostic, meaning in the same environment you can get standard-based DSL or tools like UML or like profiles, and others based on eCore, and you can have a consistent user experience and refer to elements from one to the other and so on. It's leveraging web text, which are very dynamic, which allows things like integrating 3D views, having charts and richer forms directly into the tooling. And we kept what we really like with Sirius, which is the ability to have fast iteration. You just change your view model and you get an instant reaction into the platform, and you can try directly the tool. What is changing now is you don't even have to distribute the tool, right? It just changes the definition within Sirius Web, and then end users can already use your change and provide feedback. So the loop is even smaller, and the goal is to be able to get to the best solution as a modeling tool quicker. The last one is pretty interesting too. It's as we're moving onto this world where we have a server which handles all the models and all the changes, and there is a data here which might be interesting to leverage, like all the change data. And also, you can link with other engineering tools and global data stores. I'm going to show you a small example without video, but just to show you what it gets. On the left, we have the Papyrus Web editor with a UML model, a pretty big one, which represents all the components of the Linux kernel and the interfaces, and how each component use each other component. And this model is actually provided as a REST API, as a REST resource from the server directly, which means that Jupyter Lab and Jupyter Notebook exactly is able to access this information and get the model information as a table. Here you can see the table, and then you can write your Python code to analyze the model, and you can use all the Python universe of pandas and all these technologies directly to work on top of your model. And if you change the model, obviously it's going to be, you can reflect it into the notebook. And we could also make sure that if you change something from the notebook, you could push the changes back onto Sirius Web. So these are the kind of things that we can do now. But one piece is kind of missing.
So as I said at the beginning of the presentation, there is indeed two main reasons for this common initiative. The one is the interest and the need to migrate to web technology for modeling tools. And the second one is SysML v2, this new piece of specification that is now in place and which will be the common usage in the industry in the near future. So just, I don't know, who is knowing about SysML? Okay, so just a reminder, it's just an open specification used in industry now for a long time. Maybe it's on the table for more than 10 years now, which support process development of system and software, because software is a kind of system. So it supports specification, analysis, design, implementation, verification and validation, of complex system. And by system, we mean software, hardware, information system, project itself, it's a system, information, and so on. So just a bit of history. So SysML was adopted in 2006, so some time ago, and current version of SysML is 1.7. And in the meantime of this adoption, OMG decided, I guess it's 3 or 4 years ago, to make a brand new version of SysML. In order to improve the adoption of MBEC and to overcome the limitation of SysML that was analyzed in the context of this usage. So the process at the OMJ to make a standard is to make a requirement document, which is called a request for proposal. So they raised a request for proposal in December 2017. And in order to answer to this request of proposal, usually you have teams that are set up to answer collectively to a specification. So one team was built for that. It's called the SysML submission team. And this group was gathered in December 2017. And now it's up to 200 persons coming from 80 organizations. So the importance of this language, this new version, is something very important for the community of system engineering. And the focus, the objective of SysML v2 are indeed to increase adoption and effectiveness of model-based system engineering. And they decided to focus on 5 features of the language. First, precision and expressiveness of the language. So they have established, it was a user-driven definition of the specification. And they established a request for proposal, interviewing all the big industry and small industry which has some concern with regard to system engineering. The second one was to improve consistency and integration of the concept of the language. It was sometimes some issues that was raised with regard to SysML v1. Another point is that it's part of the landscape of the tool and language that are used in system engineering. People are using also Modelica, MATLAB Simulink, and other stuff of other language. So interoperability with other engineering models and tools was a high requirement and a high focus. Then you have the usability of the tools and the language, which is very often raised as an issue for the modeling tool. And finally, extensibility, because it was required to be able to support new concerns in the industry, like safety, security, eco-design now is a very high topic for system engineering. So this ability was also a high requirement. There are 2 key elements in this standard. First, it's new meta model. Maybe you know that SysML was designed as a kind of UML profile. So coming with the flow of UML. So now it's based on the new on a new brand meta model, which import the good point from the UML model, meta model, but try to solve all the issues that was part of this language. And the second key element is to provide a standardized API to access the model to improve interoperability between all the tools involved in the landscape. And so it's part of our initial initiative, of our common initiative to also work on that aspect and provide facility and support for SysML v2.
So what does that mean for the Eclipse community, and why are we bringing that here on this talk? Well, we are creating a new project in Eclipse, which is called SysOn. And the SysOn is an open source project to provide web modeling tools for editing SysML v2 models conforming to the OMG standard. We have three main areas of interest. Obviously, we want to make sure it works and integrates with Capella, and so that you can co-design things on your systems with part of it designed as SysML v2 in Capella, reused in Papyrus, which would be the core of the SysML v2 support in Papyrus. And because we are Obeo and we are mostly focused on structured editing, then we're focusing on structured editing, which I would mean by that graphical modeling, forms, tables, and so on. But as the SysML v2 standard also has a strong focus on interoperability through a textual syntax, we're going to make sure that this syntax is supported mostly in the area of interoperability. And it's a co-lead of the CEA and Obeo, with CEA, as Sébastien mentioned, has a pretty strong record of working at the OMG and working closely with the standard definition, and with an interest into all the meta and customization that you could create. And Obeo is mostly focused on providing a product and a good user experience. The project is in proposal phase. The proposal has been published last week also. And you have the URL here, and if you want to check it out, there is a QR code which will bring you directly to the URL. But the idea is I'm going to show you now what is the current state of SysOn, because we're not just providing some kind of intention. We have actual code working, and we're going to show that. And this code is going to be the first contribution by the end of the year, so that we set up the project, create this contribution. Our goal is to provide basic system modeling during next year, probably by the end of next year. What I mean by that is that, let's say you have a bunch of students and you want to make them to discover system modeling, then you should be able to, well, use the tool, deploy it, and then have your student directly design on top of the server. That's the goal we have. And let's work on the demo. So this is the current status and current what is supported. We are supporting the general view, which is part of the SysML v2 standard, and I'm going to show you that fairly quickly. This is a sample model, which is called vehicle, and in this sample model, which is used along the SysML v2 examples, you can see we have several projects. On the left, some projects are defining attributes like temperature, power, torque, and some quantities. And all of that can be specified into a single library or a single project. And the project vehicle model is defining the vehicle. And you can see that there is quite a few packages already into this model. And you can see, again, that you can have the part definition and the attributes which are typed by, for instance, the mass or acceleration, which is defined into the other project. You would get all the features which you would expect that I showed during Papyrus Web, which are coming from Sirius Web. So that the whole point of this initiative is also to make sure that our efforts are leveraged into as many tools as possible. Obviously, you can browse through the model and use these navigation capabilities. Let's move to the, oh, I did not push the right button. To the next one. Well, the interconnection view, I won't stay long on that. There's another diagram, which is mostly the IBD into SysML, which is basically components with port and exchanges in between the component of the system. And well, we have basic support also of this diagram. Obviously, on the right, you have the property views. Right now, as this model is re-implemented from scratch, there's lots of noise here because it comes from the standard and the way we do re-implement the standard. But as now we have more capabilities into Sirius Web, we'll be able to have nicer property views like in the Papyrus Web editors. And let's... So this one is fairly interesting also if you want to figure out how you could reuse that. So we are quite involved into the Capella community, and Capella relies on a method which is called Arcadia. If you used Capella already, you know that Capella provide methodological guidance within the tool. So you have different phases for using the tool and different editors dedicated to different phases. What we did here is we defined a view model to describe this guidance and this editor. So what you're going to see here is an editor which is completely defined as a model in Sirius to provide this guidance. Obviously, it's just a proof of concept at this point. So we do have a small SysML v2 library to define attributes and elements which are relevant for Arcadia and Capella. And well, you can then create elements from the general view, for instance. And you can display those. No, delete. Sorry, I'm rediscovering the demo. And we define specific views with Sirius, which are exactly the same as you would have into Capella. So you can see the same element as an entity in Capella. But it's actually a SysML v2 element, which is referencing elements from the library. What makes this interesting is that you can provide your end user tailored tool for guidance or methodology, and also get the fact that it's based on the SysML v2 standard. And in this regard, SysML v2 is quite an improvement compared to the profile system of UML, as it's really easier to customize aspects from a library. And if I show the next one, which is this one, just to show that if we take the flight entertainment system model of Capella, which is a sample example, and transform this, then you can have the same representation and tooling that you would get into Capella. But if you create a general view, which comes from the SysML v2 standard, I mean the notation, and you can import the element and import all the elements from SysML v2 model and get them represented as SysML v2 notation. So this is a proof of concept, just so that you figure out how we envision the collaboration of these tools. Your turn.
Okay, so to come back on the plan, to conclude, first part of the conclusion is to say that for the next steps, so first we will continue the steps that are initiated. So Papyrus on desktop, we plan to have the full migration, and we will provide via Obeo professional support to that new version of Papyrus. For Sirius Web, Obeo is working on consolidating the framework, implementing search, table, and porting on this React Flow technology. Papyrus Web Editor, we plan to have a complete UML diagram by the mid of next year. And with regard to Papyrus and Capella, there will be some work to refactor or to re-architecture or to organize all the two projects with regard the new SysML projects. Then we cannot afford to account for AI. So AI integration into the framework will also be part of the plan. Integration of generative AI for code generation or for model generation also. We will integrate as modeling assistant or bots inside the tool. And finally, we can also afford to deal about what we call green tech. So all these digital tools are there to help us to engineer new systems that could help us to deal with some big issue we have to face now. But we have to care that this digital technology has to care about also this consumption, this energy consumption and so on. So green tech is part of the plan in order to limit the impact of the tool on the planet.
So, in a nutshell, we try to present 4 things here, or 4 facts that you might want to remember. First, we are transitioning some of the Eclipse modeling technologies into the web. We've been doing that in the last few years, and we're still doing that. In doing so, we're revising some choices and making some trade-offs. The idea is not necessarily to have exactly the same, but to ease the transition for all the people which have created tools on top of Eclipse modeling. Second, Papyrus is making the leap to Sirius, both on the desktop and on the web editing. Third, we hope to enable new research and innovation, as Sébastien just showed, in the areas of AI, eco-conceptions, and green techs. And the fourth one is Zion will bring an open source SysML v2 tooling within Eclipse. And this is pretty significant because, as we've said, the standard is, reaching a point where it can start to be implemented and so on. But the timing is very special compared to all the other initiatives we had in the past. The timing is perfect because now there are so many things to do, and if you have any interest into that, it's a good time to get involved and to put your grain of salt into this. The few ways you can get involved. First, we have a proposal out, and if you want your name and your organization just to be mentioned in this proposal as an interested party, it just means that your organization or yourself is an interested party on this proposal. Just send us an email and we're going to update the proposal. It shows some kind of support that you're interested into that. If you're setting up R&D project, or if you have industrial use cases which make sense for R&D project, then we are also definitely interested, and you most likely want to discuss with Sébastien first. And at last but not least, I showed you what is coming into the project, and what is going to come next is both what Obeo is planning to do and both what customers or sponsors want to pay for into the open source project. So if you want some specific features, or if you want to make sure that the product fits exactly your use case or the way you want to use it, then it's easy. You call Obeo, you get to the stand, to the booth, and we discuss, and we can set up a sponsored development. There are more talks around this. Talk from Melanie, which is tomorrow, about Shape Me Up, where you can describe how we're building products at Obeo, and talk about the Eclipse Papyrus migration to Sirius. Thanks for your attention. I did a huge QR code, which if you scan it, it's gonna start your mail client and just, well, allow you to send an email and say, hey, regarding this talk, let's discuss further. I think we're out of time for questions unless there is a break. I don't know. Do we have time for a few questions? Or?
Yeah, okay, I mean it's a yes.
Yeah, let's.
You have questions?
My question is it possible to edit the same model at the same time by multiple users?
Well, the question is it possible to edit the same model at the same time by several users? Yes, it's possible because Sirius Web allows for concurrent editing. So when you get there, you can edit concurrently because that's the way a web browser works, right? You have no guarantee that the web page is connected and so on. But what is also very clear is that it's as part of Sirius and all the open source technology, then that's what you get is concurrent editing, but you don't get real collaborative support. The collaborative support is part of the commercial offering, and so if you want to deploy that internally with enterprise services like authentication and rights management and all that comes from the commercial offer. But that's a very good question. Yeah.
But by default, if you want to share, you just share a new URL. So you send the URL of your model and you can work on it. Question? You raise the hand? You? Okay. Some other question?
Well, thank you again.
Thank you.